The morning sun crept over the cul-de-sac, casting elongated shadows from the meticulously pruned hedges and identical mailboxes that lined our street. Each house was a mirror of its neighbor, a testament to uniformity, a shrine to the HOA's ironclad guidelines. The only deviation lay at the end of the road where my property stood, a silent exception with its rebellious splash of green. Karen lived 3 houses down, an enforcer of rules, a self-appointed sentinel of suburban order. Her presence was an unrelenting hum, a constant reminder that our little enclave operated under her gaze. She was a maestro of minutiae, orchestrating the symphony of sameness, ensuring no note went astray. It was she who first spotted the clover. I had planted it deliberately, a quiet rebellion against the tyranny of perfectly manicured lawns. I preferred its soft sprawl, the way it embraced imperfection, its tiny white flowers a gentle uprising amid the rigid blades of grass. To me, it was a living tapestry, a testament to nature's preference for diversity. Karen, however, saw it differently. She saw an affront to her sense of order, a blot on the canvas of her meticulously maintained world. The first notice arrived in a plain envelope, tucked discreetly into my mailbox, its contents as sterile as its presentation. A formal accusation of non-compliance. My lawn, it claimed, was in violation of HOA standards. It amused me more than anything. The irony that a plant so innocuous could stir such fervor. I held the letter in my hand, the paper thin and fragile, like the peace it threatened to disrupt. Karen's disapproval was palpable, a tangible force that seemed to seep through the walls of her pristine abode, reaching out to constrict my small patch of rebellion. I responded not with anger, but with a quiet persistence. The clover stayed, each leaf a silent defiance, a whisper against the roar of conformity. I imagined the roots stretching underneath the soil, forming an intricate web, a hidden network of resilience. Yet, beneath the surface, an idea began to germinate, a way to turn Karen's rigid world on its head without uttering a word. It was as if the clover itself whispered the notion to me, its influence spreading not just across my lawn but into the recesses of my mind. My resolve was quiet but firm, the same kind of determination that urged the clover to spread its tendrils. The plan was simple: embrace the change. Let nature take its course. For if Karen's rules were to be followed to the letter, then surely a legal ground cover was permissible. And so I tended to my clover, nurtured it as it transformed my little corner into a sea of soft green. I watched as the days grew longer and warmer, the sun's rays dancing across the clover, turning it into a vibrant quilt of life. My lawn became a sanctuary, a place where bees lingered and butterflies dared to tread, a subtle defiance etched into the earth itself. All the while, Karen simmered, her discontent palpable in the taut lines of her face when she passed by. Her world was shifting, her control unraveling with each new bloom of clover. She hadn't yet realized that her insistence on protocol had opened a door. As the summer deepened, so did the clover's roots, extending their reach beyond my property line. I knew it was only a matter of time before it found its way into Karen's yard, carried by the wind or perhaps by some unseen hand of fate. In the quiet hours of dawn, I would sip my coffee and watch the first hints of yellow begin to appear among her precious expanse of green. It was subtle, almost imperceptible at first, the kind of change that only the most devoted of gardeners might notice. But its significance was as bright and inevitable as the sun rising over our little corner of the world. I had done nothing but let nature take its course, a simple truth that would unfold in the days to come, a quiet reminder that the most profound change often arrives on the wings of the smallest acts. Karen was relentless. The HOA citation, like a crimson brand of shame, stood as a testament to my alleged disregard for neighborhood aesthetics. She seemed to relish each new rule she unearthed, like a miner striking gold in a barren shaft. The subtle satisfaction in her eyes when discussing lawn hues was almost tangible, a twisted joy found in wielding power cloaked in regulations. The clover had begun its quiet rebellion, creeping with gentle defiance across the communal landscape. But it was Karen's turn to mount an offensive. She wielded the HOA rulebook like a sword of righteousness, slashing through common sense and goodwill with each citation issued. Perversely, the rules seemed to mutate under her influence, expanding and contracting to envelop her whims. The next notice came with its own flourish, a formal declaration chastising unapproved flora. Ironically, the clover was legal, a fact that stood like a sturdy oak amidst her gales of indignation. Yet the irony was lost on her, swallowed by the roar of her own self-righteousness. It seemed that every petty infraction, real or imagined, fed her spirit, and she thrived in the sunlight of conflict. She escalated with absurd fervor. Lawn height regulations were suddenly paramount. Overnight, inch-high discrepancies became matters of great importance. Grass blades, like soldiers lined for inspection, were scrutinized with an intensity usually reserved for matters of state. Her eyes, sharp and unforgiving, were everywhere, peering through windows, glancing over fences, always assessing, always judging. With each new citation, whispers grew louder. Gossip spread like kudzu, winding its way through neighborhood gatherings and over backyard fences. Karen's tales of my supposed transgressions became the centerpiece of hushed conversations. It was a theater of the absurd, where reality twisted under the weight of her narratives. Yet, as if by some silent accord, the neighborhood watched and waited, a collective breath held in anticipation of the next act. One morning, as the sun stretched its golden fingers across the lawns, I found a curious sight. Karen herself, standing in her own yard, surveying the clover's progress. Her lawn, once a manicured testament to HOA compliance, was now betraying her with a patchwork of yellow-tinged clover. The irony was delicious, a quiet symphony of nature's indifference to human pettiness. Her expression was a portrait of controlled fury, lips a taut line, eyes narrowed to slits, the very air around her vibrating with unspoken rage. In that moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her next move in this unfolding drama. But I merely stood there, watching her, a silent observer to her unraveling. She turned, catching my gaze, and for a fleeting moment, we were locked in a wordless exchange. The tension hung heavy, a palpable thing between us, charged with the weight of our unspoken hostilities. I offered a slight nod, an acknowledgement of this strangely intimate battle we were engaged in, a nod that said, "I see you and I'm ready." And then, without a word, she pivoted sharply, retreating into the confines of her home. But the war was far from over. The ground beneath us was alive with clover, the fields of this suburban battlefield shifting in my favor. It was a quiet revolution, a testament to resilience in the face of absurdity. I returned to my chores, a smile playing at the corners of my lips. The clover was winning, and with it perhaps a small victory for sanity amidst the chaos. Monday came with its usual humdrum, the neighborhood waking up to another week under the watchful eyes of the HOA. The morning sun stretched its fingers over the neatly trimmed lawns, and I could sense a slight shift in the air, an unspoken tension simmering beneath the surface. The clover, vibrant, defiant, and unmistakably green, had begun its quiet, steady march. It trailed like a gentle wave from my yard to Karen's pristine grass, its advance both subtle and relentless. The irony was not lost on me. She had claimed I violated the HOA's color standards with my daring choice of clover, a hardy, sustainable mat of verdure that thrived where fussy grass sulked. And now her own lawn, the pride of the block, was dotted with the cheerful invaders. Yellow blotches, like jaundiced freckles, began to spread where the clover had taken root and pushed out her beloved Kentucky bluegrass. Neighbors started to notice. Their curious glances, once polite and indifferent, lingered a little longer as they drove by. Theirs was a silent acknowledgement, a tacit understanding that something unsanctioned, yet deliciously entertaining, was unfolding. Karen's yard, the once unblemished canvas of suburban perfection, had become a battleground. In the afternoons, when the sun dipped low and shadows stretched lazily across the streets, I saw them, brief, almost furtive, gatherings at the sidewalk's edge. Heads inclined together, voices low, punctuated by the occasional quick glance toward her house. Gossip, like a whispered wind, wove itself through the fabric of our community, carrying with it hints of scandal and schadenfreude. I cut the engine of my mower and turned it over in my mind. The satisfaction was quiet, like the hum of a well-tuned machine. I watched as she stepped outside, her eyes scanning her lawn with incredulity. A general surveying a battlefield she had believed won. Her expression was a study in disbelief and simmering fury, a portrait of someone grappling with an unwelcome reality. Her fingers twitched at her side, and for a moment I imagined them tightening into fists. But there was no one to fight. No one to blame in this. Just nature, doing what it does best. Balancing, reclaiming, subverting control with a gentle smile. Days passed. The neighborhood, a living organism of routine and order, was slowly being drawn into the unfolding drama. Tensions mounted like a gathering storm. I could feel it in the way people walked, a little faster than before, eyes avoiding contact lest they be drawn into the fray. I kept a low profile, my demeanor as unassuming as ever. There was power in patience, I reminded myself, in letting things unfold in their own time. The quiet rebellion of Clover, a metaphor for something greater, something ungoverned by the narrow confines of HOA bylaws. Then one afternoon, as I stood watering the resolute Clover, a neighbor approached, Mrs. Jenkins, from 3 doors down. Her face was a map of curiosity and tentative alliance. Strange how things work out, isn't it? She said, her words hanging between us like a challenge and a confession. I nodded, a smile playing at the corners of my mouth. Nature has a way of leveling things. Our eyes met, an unspoken understanding passing between us. It was the beginning of something, a subtle shift in the balance of power. The Clover continued to spread, a quiet revolution beneath our feet, teaching us all a lesson in resilience and adaptation. And somewhere in the midst of it all, Karen was learning too. The boundaries of her control, meticulously drawn and fiercely defended, were dissolving like sugar in rain. Her face was a study in shock. Eyes wide, lips parted, the mask of control she'd worn for so long slipped away. Karen surveyed the once pristine emerald of her kingdom, now mottled and jaundiced. The irony was almost poetic, her own rules undone by her own hands. I watched from my porch, the early morning sun casting long shadows across the neighborhood. It was a new dawn in more ways than one. The Clover had done its job well. Its tiny white flowers, seemingly innocuous, harbored a silent secret, a natural process that leached the nutrients needed for Karen's fabled lawn hue. Her grass, once the crown jewel of the HOA, now resembled an unkempt relic. The community whispered not cruelly, but with the quiet satisfaction of justice served. I sipped my coffee, its warmth a contrast to the cool breeze that rustled through the trees. A deep breath of the crisp air brought a sense of calm, a reminder of the tranquility that had been absent too long. The neighborhood was waking up, children's laughter spilling out into the streets, dogs barking in playful exchange. Life was moving on, unburdened by petty tyranny. Karen, for all her bluster, was just another neighbor now. Stripped of her power, she no longer held the reins of control she had grasped so tightly. Her attempts at damage control were frantic, but futile. Community meetings now buzzed with talk of looking forward, of fostering a sense of unity rather than division. Karen was there, of course, but her words had lost their sting. People nodded politely, yet dismissed her as one might a broken clock. All ticks and no time. I glanced around. The other yards were beginning to mimic mine. Neighbors planted clover, not as rebellion, but as acknowledgement, a unity in diversity, a testament to our shared space, where nature could offer its quiet beauty without the demands of perfection. As I walked through the neighborhood, the clover soft underfoot, I pondered the quiet revolution we had accomplished. Karen had underestimated us, underestimated me. She had thought her authority unassailable. But in her quest for dominance, she had misjudged the very nature of community. It wasn't about control. It was about coexistence. A passing car honked in friendly greeting. I waved back, feeling the warmth of connection that had begun to weave through our homes. Karen's downfall had not been a moment of cruelty, but a catalyst for change. Her downfall was a lesson in humility, a reminder that power was not wielded, but shared. And in that sharing, we found freedom. Freedom from the oppression of rigid rules and arbitrary standards. A garden of clover had become a symbol of our resilience and our ability to adapt, to thrive even when faced with adversity. Life, like the clover, is unpredictable and wild. It grows where it will, finding its way through cracks in the pavement and the hardened hearts of those who refuse to change. In the end, Karen's yard was not just a patch of yellow grass, but a canvas painted with the colors of transformation. The sun climbed higher, bathing the neighborhood in a golden glow. It was a new day, a new era, and I was content to be a part of it, a quiet participant in the tapestry of life that wove us all together. Even Karen, however begrudgingly, was a thread in that tapestry, one that added depth and texture, reminding us of the past even as we moved forward into the future. I turned back toward my house, the clover beneath my feet whispering secrets of growth and renewal. The world was as it should be, imperfect, unpredictable, and utterly beautiful.